GM, hello, CPG Accelerator fam. How's everybody doing today? You are in for a great session. I'm going to be here just to kick things off and then turn it over to Sanad and Chris to get us going. We'll be here for about the next hour. If anyone has questions, you can drop them right in the comments over on YouTube. And I'll be keeping an eye over on the Telegram as well and feeding these guys a couple of things. We'll be back at the end with all the POEP information and a look at what the next 2 weeks in the accelerator look like. But let's just get things rolling. Sanad and Chris, I will turn it over to the two of you to get us started here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chad, for the introduction. Hello, CPG community. Super happy to be here with you today. Very excited about this session. My name is Sanad Karkar. I'm the CEO and founder of Zero Code. Participated in CPG Accelerator last year, the last cohort, actually, myself as well. So what does Zero Code do? Zero Code is a launchpad for entrepreneurs and Web3 builders in order to innovate and build rapidly on Web3 without having to write a single line of code. That's what we do. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs and builders, kind of like an innovation lab to help them get to the market fast. But we also work with brands. And part of that is the L'Oreal, where we joined them in their innovation program. And we had a lot of learnings from top consumer brands in the space. Previous to my Web3 journey, I've consulted and worked with tech brands around the world and also consumer brands in my creative agency days, from FMCGs to electronics. And we have as well one of my personal advisors and mentors, Chris Ebeling.
Hey, thanks, Sanad. What an intro, dude. You got that one just boom, 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 baby. That's the elevator pitch. Love it. Hey, my name is Chris Ebeling. Sorry, I don't have a camera today. I am on a business trip and my USB camera has malfunctioned. I have one of these gaming computers that don't have a camera in it, sadly. So that USB thing went wrong, and so you'll get to see Sanad's beautiful animated face. You can look at my my ugly mugshot here. But yeah, my name is Chris Ebeling. I am the Chief Creative Officer at Behaviol. We have just actually today, so I'm a bit tired too because we just launched Meta 11 today, which is a fantasy cricket game using AI technology, which I'll talk to about a little bit later, and why we're doing it the way we're doing it. I'm also one of the co-founders of Zed.Run, a digital horse racing ecosystem that was, hit its stride back in 2019. It's still going. It's still iterating on. We've got a fantastic user base, a fantastic game, and have done some really big partnerships with big brands such as Budweiser, Stella Artois, Atari, NASCAR, Netflix, and more. So I'm here to talk about those partnerships and in gaming, and also what gaming can do. Really quickly, my background is as a digital artist in films and games, some more traditional media, but I've always had the love and the passion for new technologies. So, 4 years ago, I jumped into Web3 blockchain development and how we can use, Web3 and blockchain and digital asset ownership to change the way of gaming. And now, recently, I've since moved away from Zed.Run operationally and focused on this new cricket game where we're using AI, like actually digitally living and breathing digital AI athletes, which are also going to end up on the blockchain. Now that's a bit of a little alpha for later. So now take it away. Pleasure being here.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. Let's get started. So part one of this session, we're going to be talking about harnessing Web3 to build consumer-generated brands, and what the hell does what the hell does consumer-generated brands really mean? Great. So the emergence of consumer-generated brands has been accelerated by the introduction of Web3 technology. And let's start first with some stats on what is happening when it comes to consumer brands and how are they utilizing Web3. We know as of today, over 43 brands from the top 100 most valid brands, according to the Interbrand Index, have entered the Web3 space in the last, I would say, for 24 months, right? So from 2021 till 2023 today, we see a huge amount of brands entering this space, from LVMH and its group of brands to L'Oreal Group and a lot more. Even Reddit, the list goes on and on and on. But what is really more important, and what we've really noticed here, is the amount of Web3-based use cases for consumer-generated brands. That is brands that have been built on consumer demand and through community cultivation. we have over 9,000 projects that have been listed in 2022 alone. So that is tremendous, right? Despite the hype and the burst of the hype, we still see builders building in this space. And that's really inspiring, but it also tells us there's a deeper story to that and why Web3 plays a significant role in elevating the way we build brands and the way we interact with our community. So why Web3? What makes Web3 really, really special? To do that, we need to go a little bit back in time. So we're going to do a little recap of 2021 to 2022, what we call the hype years, right? Something really unique happened there. Traditionally, prior to the NFT craze and the hype that came with it, brands were one-way communication channels. Despite what they tell you with social media marketing, social media training, they say, well, it's a two-way communication channel. It really wasn't. I love Nike personally. I'm a huge fan of Nike. I own a bunch of Nike sneakers. I wouldn't call myself a sneakerhead, but definitely like a collector. So I love Nike. You probably could love Nike too. And if we come across the street and you're wearing a Nike and I'm wearing a Nike, I'm not really going to give it much of a thought. There's no relation between two consumers using the same brand unless you're in a convention for sneakers, right? That's the only time where you're going to actually admire someone else's sneakers and feel that affinity. But what happens if Nike shuts down for the average consumer the next day? Well, nothing really. They're just going to go buy from Adidas. They're going to buy from Reebok. There's not that much of a connection really to the brand itself. Well, that was the case until the apes came to play. And I think Bored Apes Yacht Club really had a departure for a lot of marketeers in the space. And that includes marketeers working for global brands. And what was that departure specifically? Everyone was aping in. That entered the lexicon in itself, the term aping in. And people start using, the pictures of the apes as their profile pictures. People start identifying themselves as apes. Nobody identified themselves as Nike or Adidas or Reebok or, enter the name of the brand. So that was a new phenomena in I would say, like how consumers interacted with a brand. They took it really deeper than just a consumer and, brand relationship. It was more of, I'm kind of part of this thing that is growing. And what really led to that is obviously NFTs, right? So NFTs really, what they've enabled is true digital ownership. It's really can form something that is really unique here. When in the case of the Bored Apes Yacht Club, let's take that as an example, right? These images were given away or they were sold to people, and once you owned one of these apes, you owned the IP rights for that picture, for that artwork. And we saw a lot of spin-off projects that came out of that. Some of these spin-off projects were people that started their Bored Apes branded restaurant. And I just was in an NFT event in Paris where I saw NFT like with the Bored Apes beer. There was a beer brand that used that work. And I know a collective that are licensing 12 different types of apes images for different product placements. So that meant that not only will you own a piece of the brand, right? Before you could buy stocks, obviously, in a company, but here you're owning part of the actual brand identity. You could utilize it for your own personal projects. You can license it. There is monetary value in it, but there's also an emotional connection in it. And you can transfer it, you can sell it, you can trade it. Now, beyond just JPEG flipping, there are a lot of utilities when it comes to IP, when it comes to art. And that made it really a unique instrument to interact with your consumers in a lot more intimate way and bring them into the fold. But what is really important is it's not really about just the images. And this is what people really realized early on. Like an NFT or a piece of token that you're giving to someone is really a key to a community. And that's really the most important part. You want to be part of a community that shares similar values and similar culture, because then you can really leverage, that special privileged access that you have in the terms of a token to be part of innovators or builders or even just designers, whatever it is your niche, that share the same values and culture and can co-build together or co-create together. But it can also be a key to exclusivity. It can give you special access, privileged access to events in real life or virtual events or whatever it is. Like we're in CPG today. A lot of you are in the accelerator because you hold a token. So that gives you a bit of an exclusivity. And finally, there was the bragging rights aspect, right? So you have something that nobody else has. You are part of this unique membership. And during this craze of 2021, 2022, I remember there was doodle heads, there was like the cyberpunks, there was all types of different people that identified with their grouping. And that was in itself a bragging right. But the Web3 project that really thrived and flourished are the Web3 projects that have integrated into their DNA culture and value, right? So you take a look at a lot of the successful projects, what they really did well is that they had spoke to their brand essence. That was the first step. Speak to your audience, be authentic to the lifestyle that your brand represents. So let's say Patagonia represents sustainability and outdoor living. So that's what most people that would buy Patagonia would like to be associated with these things, for sustainability, environmentalism, etc. So this is the authentic lifestyle that you have to speak up to when you're cultivating that community. And once you do that right, then you cultivate a tribe. A tribe is a community that revolves around the common values and culture that brings them in together. And that is really powerful for any brand in the space. And this is why a lot of these 43 brands that I've mentioned, and the number is growing, are adopting this technology, is to try to cultivate that tribe. But once you've cultivated that, then it comes to really creating experiences. And you have a realm of digital experiences you can create. We saw a lot during the COVID years where personal meetings were restrictions. We saw a lot of use cases in the metaverse. We saw a lot of use cases on digital spaces, Discord, Telegram, you name it. This is where people congregated and met. But nothing replaces in real life activations and in real life events and that human touch. It's the ultimate luxury. And this is really where we see a lot of people get to meet in real life and actually get to know each other and build again on that community. Because that community in itself is what we call super fans, and it is the ultimate mode for any brand today. The numbers are in. If you look at organic communities that have been built, they have 4 times the brand lift as paid media. 650% the return on investment per dollar invested compared to paid media. That is important in a world where paid media is increasingly becoming difficult for you to acquire customers. The CAC costs have increased by over 100% over the last 4 years alone. So to have an alternative organic approach to increase your return on investment and the brand lift is gold. But also, you can increase the purchase by consumers that love your brand by cultivating this community. The NFT in itself is not the instrument. What's really the value lies in is in the community that you're building, and how do you utilize this community and how do you get the best out of this community. So let's fast forward to today. Let's jump into that DeLorean and just go to 2023, beyond the hype, after the burst of the bubble. What can be done with Web3 and the communities that are being created today? And how do we differentiate between traditional brands today and their approach and consumer-generated brands? So this could be both, by the way. Like Nike did the switch to the Nike.swoosh, where they are cultivating, the pull method, as I call it. So there's 2 methods that I kind of look at when I look at this space. There's the push method, which is when you push your communication down to your consumers. When you push down your products down to the consumers, you come up in your lab with a shoe. Of course, there are some desk research, there are some surveys being conducted, very extensive, very costly, but you end up with creating a product that you push down to the consumer. Versus the consumers are co-creators. They're building the products with you. They're building the communication with you. They're building the values and the culture you're with and putting it out. One has a bigger recipe of success than the other. And to illustrate that a little bit better, let's take a look at how the push method looks like when it comes, let's say, to product or product innovation. So what can we do with our solution is the push method. You have a solution, you built a product, and then you're looking at a set of problems that you want to match that solution to. Right? This method is not very successful, but it's commonly practiced by big brands, big companies. They come up with something due to desk research, market research, and then they try to push it out to the consumers. Versus in the pull method, the consumers find a problem that they want to solve, and then the solution is kind of voted on, reiterated, redeveloped with the consumers that want to solve that problem. And then you have a much better product market fit, I would say, for the problem and the solution you're trying to solve. So with traditional brands, what you have is really tightly controlled messaging and branding versus consumer-generated brands that are utilizing decentralized systems such as Web3 to build communities, DAOs, whatever you want to do with it. It's really shaped by a driven collective of consumer voice. The development of product or strategies is very long-term when it comes to traditional brands and has substantial investments into it, while development of products and solutions or even messaging and communication in consumer-generated brands is a lot more organic in its nature, and that is a recipe for becoming viral and to rapidly become more popular. The trust source in bigger brands is built over time through consistency, product service quality, advertising, consumer experiences, and repeat. Right? It's a long cycle of doing that to gain that trust source. But with consumer-generated brands, right off the bat, you got peer reviews, you got personal testimonies, you got social proof in the pudding immediately from the get-go. The communication is top down with these companies. Again, they're pushing, while if you look at consumer generated brands, there's a really distinctive thing about it, which has horizontal communication between consumers, which we don't see in other places, where the consumers are constantly shaping the narrative, talking with each other, shaping how the product is being developed, or even the messaging. The feedback loops in the traditional branding system is very slow, very periodic through market research. They do these surveys. It takes forever. And then the accuracy of it, who was surveyed, are they really the niche target that the niche market you're targeting? It's really questionable. But then when you look at consumer generated brands, it's continuous, real time, shaped by direct consumer engagement or community engagement. Now, there is something to that as well. The thing they have to take into consideration when you're building your product with the community from day one, they could be your biggest fans, but they could also be your harshest critics. It's both a blessing and, I would say, a curse at the same time. So the dot swoosh is really a great use case that I really like, because dot swoosh didn't come out of nothing. Nike started really early on. We know the acquisition of Artifact. They started producing a lot of NFTs, but then they realized the NFT hype was kind of changing. The market landscape was changing, and the dot swoosh was born in November 2022. So towards the end of last year. And dot swoosh had one concept in mind. We're going to create an open source platform to empower the community to design Nike products and to transcend this traditional creator-consumer boundaries by making the consumers themselves co-creators. So dot swoosh platform enables users to do a lot of things. Among them is to create and trade NFT virtual creations. This can include sneakers, apparels, accessories, but also wearables that could be used in games. They can collect and display their NFTs, again, bragging rights, show off Nike NFTs as wearables in the blockchain games or the metaverse, giving them something to, have this exclusivity that we talked about earlier. And of course, the exclusivity goes beyond just the digital realm. They do events and they do drops and content and special products that are only released for the dot swoosh community. Right. So the collaboration with other members is also a big factor here. So this is the horizontal communication that we see with these kind of like initiatives. And they ultimately are co-creators with Nike. The emotional bonds and investment in creating these products goes beyond just being a consumer of Nike products. The key learnings that we have here is that they utilize NFTs to act as both financial tools, obviously, but they're also emotional bridges. And it strengthens that consumer brand ties. But it also fosters a digital community that is both consumer and contributor to the brand. So what do? They reward their super fans with collectibles, exclusive perks, events, etc. Really fantastic product, a project for the brand. And it really shows you how they are thinking in line with the evolution of how the industry is evolving and how we are really thinking about where the true value of Web3 lies today. And that is utility and community. It is not only the king, it's the queen and the ace. It's the full flush, right? It's the whole deck of cards. So in 2023, 2024, we're going to see a lot of Web3 projects. And I'm already seeing a lot of these successful people raising money or building projects are really taking that into consideration. How do we leverage the benefits of the Web3 ecosystem, from these short feedback loops to co-creation to innovation to building a community that really revolves around the brand culture and values? I put here a few use cases that I really sometimes like to think about and how things could be better, just as an inspiration points. So in fashion design by community, the concept is really straightforward. Users can submit sketches minted as NFTs. The community gets to vote for them or via token staking. So you can do that completely decentralized and add that monetary value on top of it. And then the top voted designs can be produced and sold. The benefits of this: you can democratize fashion, aligns with consumer desires, but most importantly, designers earn sales percentages and you foster quality and participation by the consumers themselves that are buying the products. Another problem that we've heard about from some publishers we're talking about is about the author and reader relationship, right? So writers here can submit a basic plot. The readers can influence it through votes, and they can propose changes and modifications to the story using their tools. And the finalized book can be published and minted as an limited edition NFT. The readers can have deep reader story connection, again, like Nike did with this whole being a consumer and co-creator, but also authors receive direct feedback to improve their writing, to improve the story plot, and it's built in engaged audiences. So gamification, even the process of writing a novel or a book. And we look at artists in good marketplaces can utilize very similar things. I know I'm running out of time because I want to give the rest to Chris, but it has similar like concepts that can be done. Instead of going through the expensive process of molding and creating your jewelry and launching it to market, you can co-create with your community, utilizing the members' feedback and ideas to not only design better like jewelry and artisan artwork, but you can actually get a consensus on what people want and give discounts or even sell it as NFTs to be, to fundraise to create the actual product. And the same thing can be used in travel experiences, democratizing the space. And we see more and more use cases popping up that can really utilize these concepts of building the utility, this horizontal communication between the community members, and building real value behind Web3 beyond just let's raise funds using this JPEG, right? So you can build a lot with that. And if you're solving for consumer brands, as we've worked with the innovation labs with L'Oreal, and we've worked with a lot of other brands in the space, what we have learned, and this is our short learnings to give you in a summary, that a brand will only want to buy your Web3 product if it does one of these three things for them. It either can save them money through productivity, it either can make them money by opening new revenue streams, or it can add value. By adding value, we can take a look at three key things here. You can have functional value. So does it solve a problem for the end customer? Can it stop counterfeiting, for example? Let's talk about luxury watches. Can it add more transparency to the transactions in the supply chain of the product? The second thing is social value. Does it help consumers connect with others? Again, we're talking about this horizontal connection between the consumers and the value of cultivating the community. And then the third part is the psychological value. Does it allow consumers to express themselves or feel better using the brand? You buy a vintage bottle of wine. Can you have a digital twin as like a memorabilia of that nice bottle of wine that you cracked open? Or sustainability. Can you have certificate of sustainability, ensuring that your product comes from sustainable sources? These kind of things are what brands are today looking for if you're innovating for brands in the consumer space. And with that, I would say we have a full report that I invite you all to download and read. It's free on the Zero Code Academy. It will give you more insights on how to utilize a lot of these techniques into building your consumer-generated brand concept, and delves deeper into 3 use cases of some of my favorite brands in the Web3 space today. And with that, I will leave it to Chris to talk a little bit about Web3 gaming revolution and how it's changing the space. I'll leave it to you, Chris.
Amazing, Sanad. Really, really great talk, man. What a thorough, quick, but awesome presentation, dude. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. All right. Thank you so much. Hey, Sanad, you're gonna be running the keyboard for me because you're controlling the deck. So I'll just let you jump to the next page real quick. All right. Web3 gaming, a new frontier. All right. For those of you who I guess I'll say this in a polite way, have been living under a rock lately, you wouldn't have heard of Web3 gaming. You wouldn't have heard of games such as Axie Infinity, Ember Swords, NBA Top Shots in its own right is a game of sorts. I mean, they're trying to gamify it. That's the NBA game where they collect cards, but they're digital NFTs. They're moments of a game, and they've gamified that to some extent. Then, of course, one of my babies, Zed.Run, digital horse racing ecosystem. All these games are empowered by blockchain, by Web3. And why is that? So the integration of decentralized technology, particularly blockchain and smart contracts, is having a big impact on the gaming industry in several key ways. Just that ownership of assets and interoperability. With the interoperability clause, I do want to say we're not there yet, but there are many companies working on third-party tools that will make sure that one asset can travel from one game to another, which is super cool. We are working on something ourselves in terms of in our own sporting universe that I'll talk to about later. You can see some of the avatars here, where they will be able to be interoperable in between sports games. So owning one, say, cricket avatar, you'll be able in the future be able to take that avatar and then bring them over into, say, a soccer game or into a basketball game. And then how will what's the gamification of that? Play to earn is a big thing. That's also, again, if you've been living under a rock, you may not have heard of that, but play to earn is it comes from a traditional model called pay to win, basically. However, I'm not a big fan of the play to earn. I like to say play and earn, because in games, again, we have to come back to the core reason why we're creating games, and that is entertainment. So it has to be play first. Focus on play first, and then the and earn is secondary. Now, how can you do that? I mean, through the decentralized technical ways, you can earn points, which are then converted into cryptocurrency. For example, let's say you have a game like Fortnite, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. If not, get out of that rock. But for example, in Fortnite, you have in-game currency, which is called V-Bucks, right? I have a 10-year-old son who loves to play Fortnite. He's got so many skins, he's got so many V-Bucks, but it has no real value. With the blockchain, with digital asset ownership, with the tokenization, you can now give that value back into his hands, which I think is revolutionary. And it's only a matter of time before we get there. However, there's an education piece, and I'll speak to that later. But imagine having all these V-Bucks now, or owning those skins and being able to now trade them on a marketplace or sell them to a friend for cryptocurrency, for decentralized tokens, which is amazing. Speaking to Sanad's amazing presentation, community involvement, right? There's a lot of this governance tokens that goes around, and DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which also enable players to participate in decision-making process of games, which is absolutely also a game changer. However, from experience, be mindful on how much power you want to give to those players. At the end of the day, as a game designer and as a game creator, you want to, of course, keep the right to create the game that you want, but listen and work next to your community, involve your community. Discord is a big thing. Having AMAs, feedback loops with your community is absolutely key. And I can speak to an example which just went live today. Transparency. Blockchain ensures that all transactions and data are transparent, making cheating and fraud a bit more difficult. Identity and privacy. Decentralized IDs can allow players to maintain one identity across multiple platforms while preserving their privacy. Decentralized markets, peer-to-peer transactions with intermediaries, which is also absolutely incredible. So now I can trade my assets with Sanad, and he can trade them with me. All earnings and royalties, revenue goes between us. No third party gets involved. Anyway, anybody who knows what cryptocurrency is all about will understand that. Royalties and revenue sharing, which kind of you can tie into user-generated content. Now you can enable people to create for you. So again, something like Roadblocks, which is another game which has over 100 million users a day, where people, or actually, let's stay with Fortnite. Fortnite Unreal Engine creator, Fortnite Creative, and they recently launched the Unreal editor for Fortnite, where people are now making games within this world. If this was on blockchain and they could then get royalties and revenue through cryptocurrencies, I mean, they would be making even more return on these amazing creations. So you're rewarding user-generated content even more. And then, of course, reduce fraud. So blending consumer goods with in-game assets, I mean, represents a really exciting trend that can bridge the gap between the virtual and physical world. So NFTs as proof of ownership as well, QR codes and serialization. And then we can also jump into augmented reality. I mean, that's something that I'm really big on, but we're not there yet. We're still early. But imagine having your digital object now in your hand in front of you, thanks to your, let's go with the Vision Pro smart glasses from Apple. Once everybody has one of those, the masses will come, and you can now be holding your digital NFTs in your hand and swapping them live with people. Sanad, to the next stage, please. If you can jump to the next slide. So thanks, buddy. Strategic partnerships, something which we were fortunate to be very heavily involved with our, revolutionary, I would say, game Zed.Run. So Zed.Run is a digital horse racing ecosystem where you can buy, breed, and race digital racehorses. It is, in fact, democratizing digital racehorse ownership, giving you or anybody else the feeling of owning a digital racehorse, of breeding digital racehorses, of building a championship stable, and then racing to win. Unlike real world horse racing, of course, these horses don't get harmed, and they can also race, 100 times a day versus once a week. So again, with digital, there's an exponential growth. We were able to secure early on some really, really strong partnerships. Well, early on, we had one with Atari, which was amazing, working with an old school gaming brand. And this showed us that there was appetite for these new old school players to jump into new technologies. We then had a big one with Stella Artois, which you can see down middle right, Racing in the Life of Artois, where we went together. That was our first involvement with Anheuser-Busch, where we minted skins, unique skins. There was unique racing, all tied to the tokenization of these unique skins, right? So if you owned a digital a Stella Artois Zed.Run skin, thanks to the token and the smart contract, you are now able to enter certain races, certain events, and be rewarded in a special way. So again, within what this showed with brands and communities was that there's an appetite for brands to come in, use emerging technology to get closer to their fans, to get closer to their users, which is really, really amazing. We then went on to launch with Budweiser, NASCAR, and Melbourne Cup. So Budweiser was a huge one. I'm going to speak to some of the events in future slides, as well as NASCAR and Melbourne Cup. Now, this was back in 2019. I mean, this was all it's all new, so it's all quote unquote experimental. We were trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. There's a no risk, no reward approach when you are an entrepreneur and you are in startup. You have to take chances. And luckily and thankfully, Budweiser, NASCAR, even Netflix, which I'm not mentioning here, they all were willing to take a chance with us to try and feel out what this meant. And what we found out was there was a huge appetite for such collaborations and huge appetite and benefits for the users and the brands, and of course us as the game facilitating it. So from having us in the middle, being able to draw in users, our users who then love, say, Netflix or NASCAR, and then branding our in-game assets with this brand, then gave NASCAR, for example, another revenue model where they could now also engage new users, new fans through gamification of a totally different game. I mean, horse racing and NASCAR racing, similarities, yes, it's racing. However, still completely different, but engaging new fans of the game through new mediums and emerging technologies. And the benefits there, I'm going to speak to in the next slide, I think, which is the real world. Can you jump to the next slide? Yes, magic of live Web3 events. So here you'll see some of the events we were able to hold off, which is amazing. I mean, capturing, and again, it comes back to what Sanad was talking about, community. Community is absolutely critical. And how can you include your community, not just from a digital space, from just being online in Discord or from an AMA on Twitter, but in real world? Like, how can you actually bridge the physical with the digital? And we had some successes with that as well. The top right, you'll see we launched an event in a bar in New York where we had Zed.Run horses racing on the screen. We invited all our players and people who were outside just to get familiar with the concept. And they came in for a night of racing. Of course, what happens at a racetrack? People drink, they cheer, they have fun, they party. But having that, human approach and that human connection around a product was essentially very, very special. And being able to showcase these kind of events, of course, showed appetite for big brands such as Budweiser to come in and play along. So, for example, we had the Budverse Holiday Stakes, which was hosted at the famous historical St. Louis brewery in St. Louis, the Budweiser Brewery in St. Louis, where everybody who owned a Budweiser skin or a Budweiser pass, which they then bought through, Zed.Run platform, not only could they race unique Zed.Run races and own these skins and flex them and belong to that community, they were now invited to these VIP events. These digital assets also served as tickets of entry into these special events, which is super, super crazy. And that event was amazing. They were racing horses. You can see top corner, there's Budweiser merch that they also got, caps, jackets, racing jackets, hoodies, beanies, you name it. So there's a lot of appetite with everything that Sanad just said about, bringing in brands and consumers. There's new touch points now for big brands, for players and games to like these silos. These different silos are now all being interconnected in a brand new way thanks to a decentralized technology. We also did a really cool one with Henry Cejudo, who is a famous UFC fighter. We did a unique campaign with him where you could win courtside tickets or ringside tickets to his prize fight, which was really amazing. And Henry would also go on and race some of his horses on track, so you could race him on the track in Zed.Run and have banter with him and go at him. And then you could finally, if you were a lucky winner, you could come be invited to watch one of his UFC fights, which is one of the biggest growing sports in the world. Similarly with NASCAR, we had rewards where we put people into the racetrack and they got to visit the NASCAR pit. Again, one of a kind experiences for fans and community, all token gated through NFTs, which are then owned through a game. It's powerful. It's pretty amazing. Jumping forward, Sanad, please. So, key learnings. Now, we were very lucky to be early builders in this space. We started building Zed.Run in 2018. We launched 2019 with a lot of success in the hype. Again, Sanad spoke briefly about there is a bubble. Anybody who is following the space will know that NFTs in general are at a all-time low right now. However, jumping into Sanad's DeLorean, going into the future, we are still early. This technology is here to stay. It is empowering consumers in another way. The key learning from me and from my team is education. Education is absolutely key, and that's why I'm also happy to jump on here today and share some of our learnings. Education will give confidence to users to take that next step. Without confidence, you're not going to be willing to jump into MetaMask. You're not going to be willing to buy your first NFT. Anybody who's bought their first NFT or even transferred their first bit of crypto will know it's nerve-wracking that first time. But once you do it, and once you do it again and again, just like if you're practicing a talk or practicing shooting hoops or playing golf, whatever it is, the more practice, the more confident that you get, the more willing you are to jump on a court and play, right? So the same in this space. We have to educate users, and it's a collective we that has to do it, not just me and my team, Sanad and his team. Everybody who's listening here has to do their part. Each one teach one, and teach people on what the benefits of blockchain are. Now, with Zed.Run, what we did was we built a Web3 game. Web3 was the hype. So everything started at Web3. With Meta 11, which by the way, we just launched today. So I'm going to give a little teaser on that later. There's a little trailer, and I want everybody to go to meta11.com just to check out what the next iteration of Web3 gaming is going to look like and the journey is. You'll see these cricket players here and these beautiful characters that we've designed. With Meta 11, we're starting in Web 2. We're meeting the users where they are. And then through proper UX, through proper gameplay, making it fun first, we're going to educate the users on what the utility and the reward system is by owning your digital asset, like by truly owning your digital asset. But we want the user to give us permission first. So see it as a Web 2, Web 2.5, and then a Web 3 process, but through the gamification and through the UX flow and the user journey. This is absolutely important. Again, the masses, if you look at the statistics, the masses are still in Web 2. Still not enough people in the Web 3 space. And again, that comes back to education. But we believe through a proper game, from doing gaming writing, building a game fun first, and then educating people on what it means to own this asset and what rewards and utility that's going to give back, we can then educate people and give them wallet, non-custodial wallets exist. It's much seamless transaction. We can do all the heavy lifting under the hood, and people can still come in and pay with fiat if they want to own stuff, but we can do all the heavy lifting and store their NFTs for them. And when they want to look under the hood, we can educate them on how it works. And I have this, everybody knows how to drive a car or how a car works, but does everybody know how an engine is put together? Now that kind of analogy is what's true with Web3. We know that gaming is fun and we want to own our assets, but we don't really want to go through all those clicks and friction that comes with owning a wallet, dragging something across, sending something across. Like with every click in this gaming space, you stand to lose 50% of your users, right? So it's really important that we try to come at this easy, frictionless, and make it familiar. Blockchain right now for unknown people is still very, very familiar. So that's how we're going to approach it with the Meta 11. That's something that we've learned. I mean, and we've kind of reversed that with Zed.Run. Zed.Run we started in Web 3, but now due to the change of the environment and the way things are going, we're also moving backwards now into a Web 2 mode. You own your horses still on chain, but we have to make it accessible for the masses, frictionless, and also the ability to just go in and buy with fiat currency versus having to own Ethereum or WETH or RAPI. Okay, so and one really important thing is creating a really strong game economy loop. I mean, when you're creating a game, you really have to understand what one game economy that favors a hardcore user as well as a casual player, and how do you balance this? There has to be room for everyone. The danger, and we've seen with also Zed.Run, is that whales can come in and buy up things. So we've had to rebalance the gaming structure and figure out how it works so it favors the masses and not just a select few. Um, so yeah, another important step is rewarding people on their journey. When you're playing games, it's not about winning, losing, and drawing. It's about actually you being rewarded along the way, and that's something else where you can use NFT, in-game assets, virtual currency or tokens to reward people for their participation, which is absolutely important for retention and gives them something for play for. Last, again, community is key. Your users are your product. You got to listen to them, follow the pulse, follow the data, build alongside them, talk to them. Um, looking at aforementioned successful Web2 games such as Fortnite, creating a strong story as well is key. So that comes back to my fun first quote. It has to be fun. It has to be entertaining. There has to be something there for everyone. Stories are really key to retaining information. You're gonna learn more through good storytelling. So for us in Meta 11, it's really important that we build a strong story world, some strong characters that have emotional value, that have emotional gravitas towards you, and a connection that you'll find and someone you might follow. And then going through this, again, Fortnite has a really brilliant way of doing it, a seasonal approach, where every 2, 3 months there's a new season that comes along, a new bit of the story, introducing new characters, new game modes, new accessories, and so on. And this is a really key way to help drive retention. That's about it for that slide, Sanad. The next slide, I will just, if it plays, I hope this plays. Did it play? Does it work? If it doesn't play, then
No, it doesn't. But do you know what?
yeah,
I
dude.
can I can share my
You
screen
don't have to. You don't
instead.
have to. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
it's
They can. Okay.
yeah.
Well, this jump over to meta11.com. You'll see this trailer. Super cool. Super proud of what the team's building. State of the art graphics. Again, the approach we're taking, Web 2, Web 2.5, taking the users on a journey to Web 3. And that's where I think the key is, because the masses are still in Web 2. And that's something you have to consider. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chris. And now takes us to part 3 of this, which is Ask Us Anything. So please feel free to drop us your questions.
Hey guys. So I just
Hello, Chad.
I put a prompt over in the chats. We have one question that came in already. Let me pull it up so I make sure. So someone wanted to know if you could recommend a legal partner or consultancy. They are working in the gaming space, but it includes a giveaway piece. And they want to make sure that they are bulletproof, and against any concerns around gambling laws and things like that.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if you guys have, I imagine you've come up against that type of stuff
Horse
before.
racing? No way.
Yeah.
No way.
I
Sport,
wonder
crypto horse racing. Like
what
really
kind
it
of
comes
advice
down.
do you have?
Yeah, my best advice is to understand what jurisdiction you are launching your game in. Like, there's different laws, different states, different countries. So really get your head around what jurisdictions. Like a legal partner, depending on what country you're in, I can't advise. We've built both our projects out of Australia, so we have legal entities in there that help us. But we of course work on a global approach because it's digital. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, but really understanding what jurisdictions you're trying to launch your game in is key, because there's different legalities for every state in America, for every country in Europe, and for every part of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And is it so for the best kind of advice is it's about where they're launching from, not necessarily exactly
Yes.
where their users are. Is
Yeah,
that
exactly. Well,
okay?
both, because your
Yeah.
users might be geo-blocked, like we've seen it with the Zed.Run. I mean, we're out of Australia, but certain users, and depending on what regulations, and in the crypto space, mind you. If you're following Zed.Run, you'd have seen lately we had to announce that we can't do paid racing in Australia now due to regulatory reasons that have changed. These reasons are constantly evolving. They're constantly chopping and changing. And as a creator and an entrepreneur or like a startup in this space, you just got to keep your finger on the pulse and stay close to regulatory people and understand, you know, we want to help educate them as well.
Yes.
But we also have to play by the rules and be very respectful for what's going on. And it's going to chop and change again, right? It's because it's very new technology.
And I think on that, Chris, I would just mention one thing. Like sometimes people like view regulators as a risk. Actually, you should find them as an asset, because if
Yes.
you're a startup that figures out the regulators before others, you have that first mover's advantage, and you have that wall to protect you from competitors. So as Chris
Absolutely.
said, you'll be surprised how easy it is to talk to regulators and how easy you can
Yeah.
start initiating these dialogues.
Yes. Good point. And they want to talk. They want to learn. I mean, this is new technology to all of them as well. They're trying to figure out what the best lay of the land is. So absolutely correct, Sanad.
Yeah, and it's a great point of even whatever the answer is today might not necessarily be the answer tomorrow. So
I mean, you can
our
see it
teams,
in the crypto market, the exchanges. You know, the last year they've chopped and changed the rules like so many times, and they're flip flopping around. You know, it all depends on who's running for government as well. Like, I don't want to get into politics, but you know, who's behind who, right? So it will change.
yeah, totally. Um, on that front, I wonder if looking back, you guys. I mean, thank you. The stuff you walked us through here today was incredible. I'm sure the teams here are going to get a ton out of it. Do you have like what's the best one piece of advice maybe for each of you for that either you would give yourself like looking back at the beginning of your journey, or for someone that's just starting out today, what's like what's the best piece of advice that I guess you would give to folks just starting out today?
Build your community immediately. Build your community of people that want to buy your product, whatever you're selling. Start interacting with them as soon as you can to get that feedback. Build your product on feedback. And of course, surround yourself with people like Chris, right? That's what I did. So I reached out to Chris, and we got to meet, and I started reaching out to a lot of other people that were established before me, that built things before me, and just build these connections to help guide me through the process. So like I would say, that's always the advice, is like work with your customers very closely, build that community, build that connections, but also work with other entrepreneurs in the Web3 space. And this is, I think, something that is very unique for us in Web3. Web3 entrepreneurs help each other. And I don't say it, we hear that a lot, but it's actually true. You go to any event, of course, you're going to find the little snakes here and there, but the majority of people are there to help and leverage each other's strengths to propel the space forward. And this is what Chris said, like we kind of have this if we want this space to survive, we need to all to be educating. We all need to be working together to make the technology more accessible, not alienating others from accessibility to this space. So yeah, that's my part.
That's beautiful. He took three of my advices there.
Oh,
No, it's good, but that only means that we're on the same page. I think community, again, absolutely key. Work with your users. You're building alongside them. Listen to them. Listen to the data. Listen to the data. It's science, right? There's a reason if I drop my pen next to me, it falls. It's called gravity. Things do happen for a reason. There are things in this world that are there, and data is one of those. So listen to that. Working with your community. Take risks, man. Don't be afraid to take those risks. I mean, we're all trying to build something new here, so that's a really key one as well. I know it's a bit cliche, but you got to be brave and you got to be willing to risk it. I mean, we've taken serious risks in our time, and and not being afraid to fail. So there's an old motto: fail fast, fail often, or fail forward. Failing has a negative connotation to it. Failing is exactly what education is from life. It's experience of life teaching you a lesson, and you learn from your failures. So if you don't take risks, you're not going to take failures. You're not going to learn. And the more failures you make, the more you learn, the better equipped you are for when you launch your next project or when you're building. So, and to Sanad's point as well, man, I mean, I've learned equally as much from Sanad. I'm just don't tell him that he has. Um, but like surrounding yourself with people who are like-minded but passionate, but also people that are smarter than you in certain areas, right? That complement you. So find that group, and if there's people around you who are just negative Nancy's and tearing you down, I'm sorry, leave them for maybe a Sunday afternoon, if that, right? Cut them out of your life, sooner the better, because you ain't got time for that. You just got to get moving and moving. But hey, Sanad, can you do me a favor? Can you share that last slide with the QR code? Because I really
Yeah,
want to,
Oh,
absolutely.
yep.
So we
two
have
for two
this one right
reasons here.
here.
Yeah, I just want to speak to this. So we launched Meta 11 today, and I'll tell you a little bit about the learnings today. We had a launch 20. It's going for 24 hours. In the first 3 hours, we had dev issues. We have this thing called a chatbot that wasn't working, which is a key integration. But what it showed was we were able to pivot and be resilient, and our dev team was able to fix that. We're not afraid of owning that. And straight away, we jump on an AMA space, 3, 4 hours later, and we talk to the community about it and what those learnings are. We involve them in the journey of building, right? So if you go onto Twitter, you can find it's meta11.com, but you can also find it on Twitter. You can see that AMA and listen to it. I think that's a really important lesson as a founder. You'll hear my CEO, CTO, our co-founders all talking to what happened, why it happened, but what we took away from it. And that is, you're not going to get it any better than that. That's like live and direct, man. This is like, I've got an open wound in my leg from this. I'm bleeding, but I love it. I love it. It's so good. It's been a buzz of a day, launching something. And for anybody else, please, you can reach out to me on my Twitter or on Chris at Behaviol.com. I'm always happy to look at projects and help people out. So that's
amazing.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
sweet.
Yeah. Appreciate that. And, I love this, this kind of start with the community. Last week we had Kevin DeGods on, and very similar, type of thing, just talking about how important the community was to them, how much feedback they get, the participatory rate of the folks there, how many products they've built because of, requests from the community. So it's a great kind of matchup with what we talked about last week.
Perfect. And again, last thing, we're still early. Actually, one little
Yeah.
piece of advice too. Does your product need Web3? Ask yourself that question, just to Sanad's point as well. Like if it doesn't, if it's not giving the consumers more, if it's not giving the brands more, think about, you have to answer those questions, then go ahead and then build out a Web3 strategy.
And a segue to that, if your
I think I'm
project
breaking
doesn't,
up.
yeah, I
Perfect
think,
timing.
can we go back to the slide chat if you don't
Oh,
mind?
yep,
Really quick? Yeah. So, and if you do need Web3, I would say this is a special offer for all the CPG community. We have the zero code alpha out, which gives you all the minting tools, integration tools, Wix, Shopify, WordPress, whatever you're using would enable you to create a mint button on your website, deploy your smart contracts on Ethereum, Polygon, and Binance Smart Chain, and create token gates. And we're launching in October now as well, in real life verification of your NFTs to give you access. This is absolutely free for the CPG community to utilize and build on. So please visit the site and start building. And
And can
if
I
you need
say
any more
something
help,
about
reach
zero
out.
code?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
sure, Chris.
amazing. It's made intuitive. Again, Sanad and the team have focused on making it frictionless and also focused and familiar, right? Again, back to my point, they've taken Web3 utility, but they've made it Web2 friendly. So it's familiar. It's something you've seen before. It's easy to use, and now it's empowering you with the utility of Web3. So it's an absolute banger of a product, man.
Because I saw a question here, and I'm sorry, Chad, to jump in, but I saw a question here about someone who said, "What suggestions would you have for a sparkling canned wine brand that wants to develop more Web3 initiatives, build a DAO, QR codes on 4-packs, mint NFTs, looking for the next iteration?" And I think that's an excellent question. And I think one of the things that we always see with brands that don't have a direct connection with their consumer is that, if you're selling sparkling wine brand, you're probably selling it through a supermarket or a liquor store of some sort. So you don't have that direct customer relationship. It will be really good to reward people that buy your wine, right? So by creating that QR code, for example, on the 4-pack, and they can redeem points like POAPs, and then the redemption of points can actually give them discounts or special offers, or even like invited to events that your brand will host in the future, would give you direct feedback and insights to consumers that you traditionally wouldn't have contacts with. So I think NFT could be used here as a bridging technology to get access to these users where you normally wouldn't be able to cater to directly. And, because you're selling through third parties. Sorry, I had to jump on that. I really like that
No,
question.
no. That's it's a great question for the folks in the chat there. I just want to make sure. Let me hop over here. I just want to make sure a couple of just CPG community updates for folks. So we do have office hours this Thursday with Gregarious. There's still time if you have not sent in your company blurb and collect the POAP for that. Check out the pin post in the Accelerator Telegram. And then looking ahead to next week, we are talking some more tokenomics type stuff. So we've got Third Web over on Tuesday, and then Token Proof on Thursday. So I believe no office hours next week. Both of those will be kind of similar educational types of things. And then I'm just gonna mute you, Sanad, while you're typing, or you want to?
Sorry.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I was responding to the chat. Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I'll stop.
okay. No, yeah, no, that's good. Like, let them know in there. But I just want to make sure. So, in honor of the Meta 11 launch today, the POAP secret word today is
Woohoo!
hit for 6.
Yeah, baby. Let's go.
Our European colleagues in CPG gave us that one.
Love it.
Yeah, so that will actually be up for 72 hours. So for folks that are watching it live, for folks that are checking out the replay later in the day or tomorrow, make sure to collect your POAP. That'll be used for both the CPG rewards as well as the POAPs you need for the CPG certified. I know we are right at time here, but just looking through the questions to see if there was anything else. I think this is a good one just because we talked about community as well. And Serge asked, any initial thoughts or any thoughts on kind of getting that initial community? They ask any tips where to start or marketing agency. I mean, I think if you're that early on, an agency's probably really early for you to use, but in those early days for both of you guys, like quick tip here on just like how to start building that community. Anything from either of you?
Consistency, man. I'm going to take a book out of Gary Vee, a page out of Gary Vee's book, and that's just post, consistency. Again, look at the data. What are people responding to? What are they liking? Double down on those things. Figure out what it is your value add you're giving the community, what kind of community you're building, and then just keep going. I wouldn't start on any marketing at all. I would be doing small AMAs, Twitter Spaces. Back in the day, it was, what was that called? Club Spaces?
Clubhouse.
No, Clubhouse. Yeah, back in the day, there was Clubhouse for a minute, right? And bring people in, talk to them, have that community vibe. We're doing that. We've been doing that with Meta 11, for example. We have a Discord AMA, like a coffee catch up every Friday. We just sit and talk about what's happening. People can come and just chat. It's just chill. Give them an intro to the behind the scenes of what you're doing. Include them on the build and the journey. Show them stuff from behind the scenes and stuff like that. But yeah, you got to figure out your market fit as well. What are you building? Who are you building for? Understand your audience. What's your target group? And then figure out what they want, right? And then just speak to them.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that you've mentioned here is really important is like the posting. You want to like rank high on Google SEO, like organic search results.
Yes.
And you could do that by posting a lot of articles and repurposing content. So I post a lot on LinkedIn, Medium, and you build a following there. My target is obviously a lot of builders and brands. So that's where they live the most rather than gamers. You would find them more in Discord and Twitter, right? So like depends on your target audience. Like write a lot of content and make sure to link it up to your site, a lot of backlinks back to your site, and that will make you like rank higher in the search results.
Yeah, thread them together, man. Make sure they're linked back to the site.
Create a blog post on your site. Whatever you post on LinkedIn, post it on your site as well, and just create more content.
All roads lead to Rome.
Yep.
For sure. Well, guys, we are right at the hour here. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to the community here. Really appreciate, everything you had to say today. If we get any more questions or anything, I'll be sure to send them over to you. But, any last words for the community while we're wrapping up here?
Say good luck, guys, with building your projects. And as Chris and I said, we're always available. So if you want to reach out to us directly, please feel free to do so. More than happy to listen to your ideas, guide you. You want some support, connections with whoever, investors, customers, potentially, just reach out.
Yeah, amen, man, and good luck with everything. Absolutely honor and fun. Always fun to share stories. Again, sorry, I'm a bit I'm a bit more jaded today than I usually am, just because we've been in launch mode for the last 12 hours, man. It's been a hectic day, but fun.
Totally get it. The life
This is
of
why
an
we do it.
entrepreneur.
Yeah, this is what we do it for,
absolutely.
man. It's a buzz. I'm gonna go
Yes,
have
and you
Negroni now.
utilize and as well, Chris, I have to say this, like, utilize CPG more. I've met the best people in CPG, honestly. Like, I'm not just saying it to like bump up CPG right now, but I truly have met the greatest community builders on CPG. So yeah, shout out to CPG. Thank you guys
Amen,
for
man.
hosting us.
Thanks, Chad. Thanks,
Amazing.
CPG.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Peace.
All right.
Thanks.
You too.